Goes 1, 9, O to the 6. The mother fresh driver, they can't do it like this. They walk like this, walking out like this. They train like this. It's the grip, it's the clip for that. Black, and old gold. You still don't know the word that came so cold. You already know it's that 85A. Turn the letters round backwards to say 85A. Hey. And I ain't even skating. Better call security if you wanna let them apes in. Half a banana. Throwing up the sound while I'm waving the banner. And I don't care about scenarios, it doesn't matter. Your organization was founded after my chapter. Don't boy, about to get that life membership. Visit the Omega chapter, I can still rip the gang. Oh, tricks and one. 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 Oh, tricks. All the bros in the place, raise your pinky and your thumbs. All the mother groups sit down. We the first ones counting in that 1, 9 to that 06. All the mother brats behind, we keep them hopeless. Yeah, man, who wrote this? Me, man, who wrote this? I'ma have to say ice in their ass when I'm big. We them 85 guys, also known as fly guys. Every time you look at us, when that train ride by, we something like the Coleman brothers in the school. Give them boys a glass of water and we turn them into ice cubes. Always make the right moves. Scholars to doctors and lawyers, all the way to principals to higher schools. Uncles don't pass. The boys talk it out. After the song, believe it, girls talk about it. Damn, girl, you never seen a bruh standing out, giving women cross fight before the club letting out here. Oh, tricks and one. It's that breaking no tricks and one. You already tricks and one. Oh, man, tricks and one. Off the entertainment. Oh, number tricks and one. Oh, tricks and ones. Oh, tricks is that 1-5-8. Oh, breaking tricks and one. Oh, tricks and one. Oh, tricks and one. Oh, tricks and one. Who you with? Oh, tricks and one. Oh, tricks and one. Oh, tricks on the sign up. Oh, tricks and one. Oh, tricks and one. Oh, well, tricks one. Alpha 5, yeah. Oh, Crockett Church, University, 1927. Tricks, let it ride out. Let it ride out.
Tell you what, man, every time I hear that song, I feel like I'm ready to go out, get it there and start party walking.
You're too old for that. You're too old. You're too old.
Yeah, my knees won't let me be great no more.
I hear you.
All right, so I want to thank everybody for joining us for episode number 2 of the Final Hour. We are the Alpha Psi Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Hashtag Capital City Alphas. Based out of Columbia, South Carolina. As always, this is Hook, and I got my boy Ruben here with me. Say what's up to the people, Ruben.
What's up, people? Hey, Kesia.
Hey.
All right, so guys, tonight we're going to be discussing something that is seemingly taboo in the Black community. We're going to be discussing mental health, more specifically as it relates to Black men. And one of the things, because we were talking back in the studio, and one of the things that we really want to do is normalize these conversations. And we want to break the stigma that asking for help is a sign of weakness. But not giving too much away. We have someone who's going to lend her expertise in the area. So Kesia, go ahead and tell the people who you are.
Hello, hello. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Hook. Thank you, Ruben. Thank you, Alpha Men, for thinking enough of this critically important subject to have this discussion tonight. It's so important. My name is Kesia Ginn. I am currently a licensed clinical social worker for North Carolina, so I'm out of the Charlotte area, but originally from the Low Country of South Carolina, so I know Hook well, and we go way back. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology from Winthrop University, and have my master's in social work from University of South Carolina, Columbia, and went on to pursue licensure, which I became licensed in 2007. I've worked in a lot of different settings, primarily mental health, and I am currently the president of the Mecklenburg Mobile Crisis Team. So I supervise a program of social workers and counselors who go out into the community here in Mecklenburg County, assisting individuals in crisis. I started on the front lines at Mobile Crisis 7 years ago, and kind of worked my way up through the agency. I am delighted to, again, be invited here to speak tonight on this important subject. I've done a lot of work with the mental health population, and I have witnessed firsthand how important it is that Black and Brown professionals create platforms to allow people who look like us to be able to be okay with saying, you know, I struggle with anxiety, I struggle with depression, the trauma, you know, that we perhaps dealt with or endured growing up has really impacted me, and I'm still struggling from that. We need to have those conversations, and so it is important to me as a brown woman, a woman of color, and a human services professional to be an advocate, you know, again, for people who look like us, specifically, again, with this discussion tonight, talking about Black men. I have 2 brothers, I have 3 nephews, and so it's extremely important to me that this conversation be had, and particularly in the Black community, we start to have these conversations and create a safe space for people to say that they need help and to reach out for that help. So I am delighted to be here having this critically important conversation with you all.
Absolutely, definitely, and Keisha, we appreciate your flexibility. So thank you for coming on. So we'll go ahead and get started, man. And and really, I want both of you to chime in on this, Keisha and Ruben. So let's take a moment and let's think about what a person experiencing a mental illness, what they look like. So what image pops into your head?
Me, you. The average person I've come to know, just like Keisha was saying, in this profession. Well, I'm not directly in the mental health profession, but the type of work that I do, every day you see different people that you never thought were struggling or dealing with mental illness. They look just like you and I, just like the average person, from my experience.
Absolutely. I would totally agree with that. I think you hit the nail on the head, Ruben. Mental illness does not discriminate. And in my work specifically with crisis, and again, I've worked in many different settings, you know, we respond to some of the most affluent neighborhoods in Mecklenburg County. And then on the reverse of that, we respond to some of the poorest areas. Mental illness does not discriminate. And so it can be the average person, 1 in 3 people. And so you think about your circle, you know, think about 3 of your closest friends. There's 1 person likely in that group, if not more, who is experiencing some sort of mental health condition that likely the others in the group have no idea that person is dealing with. So it does not, you know, when we think about a face, it's our faces. It's literally the people that you interact with every single day.
Yeah,
definitely. And I think that's both of you guys pretty much. I think it really speaks volumes to what you said, because it truly is just the average person. You know, I think growing up, and we would think that somebody who's depressed or mentally ill, we would think maybe it was somebody who's homeless, who's going through something, some disheveled person, who really looks the part. And just think about like some of the celebrities who have committed suicide. Like people who very extremely wealthy people who seem to have everything going for them. There's something that really triggered them and to cause them to take their own life. So that tells you is not just the people who you think may be suffering. Well, let me take that back. The people who you think may not be suffering,
Right.
Those are the who are really suffering the most.
And I think we've camouflaged it very well in
absolutely.
the African American community, because when we grew up, what happened to this house stays in this house. You don't talk about our business outside of this house. And I've noticed that just being a mentor, several young folk have experienced molestation. They've experienced so much mental trauma, but they haven't said anything about it because of fear and keep it in the house. You don't take our business to the street. They do that. We don't do that.
Right.
So we've become accustomed to doing such, and fear of the backlash from those in our families or so forth.
Absolutely. I hear that, from countless clients. I see some clients individually doing some independent work as well. And I do that again because it is important for me to have people who are struggling, see a face that looks like them. And so I will hear the stories of exactly what you just said, Ruben, years of molestation. But, and if if the kid told the parent, it was, minimized, or, I'll deal with it, but it really wasn't dealt with. And it continued for years. And so, particularly in the African American community, we rely heavily on faith and spirituality, and family ties are extremely important.
Right.
There's a reliance on community, but not to the level that really matters. When we think about community, we should think about, trusted adults that a kid who's being abused can go to. But again, in the African American community, that's not really the semblance of community. Community is, even if you're dealing with struggles in your family loves you. It'll be fine. Keep pushing, get through. And so we have to, and I'm sure we'll talk about this as we move through. But it's so important, that we start early. That we let boys and girls know, particularly boys, because we hear it a lot with the male gender, suck it up, be tough, don't cry. If you're boys don't cry, you're weak. We have to allow a space for young boys to express themselves. They have to be able to talk and process about, what's going on with them emotionally. And we don't really create that sort of environment, in the African American community. And so it starts young. We need to be having conversations with our little brown boys and girls. We need to be able to say, what, my kid is experiencing something beyond what I'm able to manage as a parent. And so let me reach out to a professional. We've got to start young. Otherwise, broken little boys and girls grow into broken adult men and women. And that's why we have so much, again, stigma attached to saying I have a problem and I need help for that. We have to start younger.
Absolutely, because you think about it, as kids, if we aren't allowed to openly express ourselves, like you said, if something happens, if we cry, they tell us to man up, be tough, stop being a punk. They drop the F-bomb, making it not okay for us to express emotion. So when we become adults, we keep that. So now you have an adult man who, because women love to say that men don't express themselves enough. Well, Black men in particular, we haven't been given that outlet. We haven't been given the opportunity to truly express ourselves. So now that we're adults, you expect us to just automatically open up. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. And I'm speaking from personal experience. And we touched on something earlier. And let me ask you guys, so what are some of the slang words that you've heard to describe someone who's mentally ill? Like, what are some words you've heard?
Crazy, nuts, mental, insane, psycho, just a few.
Yeah.
Same ones, Ruben?
Man, I was going through some of them in my head, and so she hit them. But yeah, weird, crazy. That's most common. That person's crazy. They're loony.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's always some negative connotation attached to it when you speak about that particular illness, right? So conversely, what are some slang words that you've heard to describe other diseases, like let's say cancer? What have you heard any derogatory words used for a cancer patient? None
that immediately comes to mind. No.
All right. So you got two illnesses, right? So you got cancer, which is an incurable illness, right? And you have depression or mental illness. I mean, for some people, it may be incurable. So why is one different from the other? Why do we demean one and denounce people who are mentally ill, or if they're saying they're experiencing emotional problems? But for cancer patients, oh my God, you have cancer. Oh, I know. We're praying for you. So why don't we keep that same energy for somebody who's going through a mental illness?
It's a wonderful question. It's a wonderful question. And I wish I had the answer to that. And for people who are struggling with any sort of emotional or mental health condition, it's important for them to ask themselves that, why is it that if I have, chronic back pain, am I more inclined to go see a doctor for that than if I am struggling with opening my blinds in my home because I want to keep it dark because I don't have the motivation, interest, or energy to get up and get my day started? Why is there such a difference between the two? But I won't seek out a mental health professional to help me understand what's going on with my mind. And so it's extremely important. So for those who are struggling, it starts there, before we expect everybody else. And that is important. Don't misunderstand me. It is important for others, but we have to understand our mind, I feel, is even more so important that we address and attend to, because our physical, how much are we going to really devote to physical health if our minds aren't right? Typically we see the effects of our emotional instability in that we eat whatever, we don't exercise, so we're obese. We have, again, chronic health issues because our minds are not well. And so we've really got to start there. We've got to understand that the same way my back hurts and I've taken over the counter, I've done everything I know to try to get myself back to a place of balance, but it's beyond what I'm able to control. So now we need to go see a professional. We need that same intensity for our emotional and mental well-being. And I always say to people, it's your business. It's your business. If you are struggling and you want to reach out, nobody needs to know that. Now, hopefully you have a circle that, there are at least, one person or a couple of people who can support you in your decision to reach out for help. But even if you have to go solo, no one has to know that you're going to see a professional. No one has to know that you're taking an antidepressant. Mm-hmm. But if that's what's necessary to get you to a place of, feeling like you're worthy, of having some hope, of having the level, a level of motivation and energy to just go about your normal day-to-day activities, then do that for you. Mm-hmm. Show up for yourself in that way. So, I mean, that's a wonderful question, Hook. And I wish I had the answer to that. I've seen it. And research also shows, particularly for men and Black men, again, what's going on emotionally. A man isn't likely to say, again, I'm struggling with depression in most cases, or, I've got some anxiety issues going on here. But many times it manifests itself in the physical. So I'm having, headaches that won't go away. I'm having body aches that I can't explain. There are digestive issues that I can't even explain what's going on. Many times it's the physical that we're going for. And so we'll go to our primary care, and men aren't real big on going to the doctors either, even for medical. So let me be clear about that, especially Black men. However, if we get to a place physically where we don't have a choice, because it's like, wait, something's going on here, I just have to go. Typically, if there's something going on emotionally, it's going to manifest itself in a physical way.
Yeah.
And I think it's huge. Because a lot of those things you mentioned, crazy and, you're out of your mind, you're nuts, these things weigh heavily on you. And these are all things that I heard before I sought help. You know what I'm saying? So, and like my circle, like I have a huge family, right? And we're extremely close, but I couldn't talk to any of them. And I found that very, disconcerting because, we show all this love and we love each other, but why am I not comfortable going to these people? And so it got really bad because you said sometimes it manifests itself in the physical. I was having migraines for no reason, had no idea why. Sometimes I'd go home and I would just cry uncontrollably, like for no apparent reason, like nothing really happened. I'm like, maybe I am crazy, like it's something's really going on. But for me, and I again, I'm finally at the point where I can really talk about this and be honest about it. For me, the tipping point when I saw help was when I started having suicidal thoughts, and obviously, and I want to be clear, I never attempted suicide. I never tried to kill myself. But the fact that it came into my head, I'm like, you know what, this is not right. I need to seek help. So that's when I went. And I sought the help that I needed. And there's been a change in my family dynamic because, and I'm not saying that me telling them that I sought help changed it, but we talk about mental health all the time now. So we have a text chain and we say we're praying for everybody and, talk about mental health and talk about the importance of seeking therapy. I have like 2 or 3 other cousins who are seeking therapy as well. And again, I'm not saying I'm the catalyst for that, but I do know that by me opening up about that did allow some people to do that. So, but I think this is why this is so important because you can actually save someone's life because you never really know what someone's thinking. And it's easy to talk about the battles that we can see, the struggles people are going with, but the toughest battles are the ones that we don't see and that no one knows about.
Absolutely. And I think also, Hook, it's important to note that, it's not the easiest thing to hear. I'm a professional, so I've been doing this for a minute, so I'm accustomed to hearing people say, considering suicide has crossed my mind. That's not the easiest thing to hear, for someone you love, and so I think a lot of times particularly in the Black community, we don't know how to handle that, and so it's like, I can't say anything because my family, even if you're not, because again, unless you're a professional and you deal with this on a regular basis, that can be a very uncomfortable, conversation for you to have with somebody who you love. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was that bad. I didn't, you're thinking about, you have people who love you. It's okay if you don't know how to help them. What's not okay is judgment. What's not okay is saying, just pray about it. We hear that all the time. Just pray about it. God will fix it for you, or, that's a spirit. We hear that a lot in the Black community, in Black families. It's a spirit. You just we're going to have we're going to call the pastor and have no, like we've got to create an environment where we're not trying to talk people out of what the validity of their feelings.
Right.
We have to be able to say, you know what, I'm here for you. I support you. I'm proud of you for sharing, your most vulnerable emotions with me. I'm here for you. If you need anything, I'm here to support you. Let's reach out. If you're aware of resources that might be available, this person came to my job and talked about, counseling for African American men, whatever. Like we have to create an environment where it's okay. And just because we don't know how to handle it, it doesn't make it not real. You know, we can push it under the rug. We can say, okay, I'm gonna act like I didn't just hear what he said. That doesn't make it go away. And you might have just missed a critical opportunity to help save somebody's life. Yeah. Because that's really what it comes down to. It's not just, you know, people have, well, it starts with thoughts. There are people who die by suicide every single day. So we have to take it seriously. We have to create a supportive environment where we're not standing in judgment, because it's that person today. It could be you next week. It could be you 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Right.
So Kesia, how do we address or aid the situation with? I've worked in Christian radio for almost 16 years. And you hit the nail around the head when you talked about we just pray it away. So how do we fix that? How do we fix that in the Christian community, more specifically in the Black church? Because
yes,
how do we fix that?
Yes. So I have a real interest, and not just for me. You know, if there are any other professionals, it is so important for church families, pastors, and leaders of churches to have this discussion, to have these sorts of discussions. And I think there are lots of churches who are making some strides with discussing mental health. But there's so much more that needs to be done. We need to create, because again, sick people go to the church, right? Who are depressed and struggling, and that's what we learn in the Black community. You know, you take it to the house of the Lord. You take it there, and in most cases, you leave it at the altar. And when you walk out those church doors, excuse me, you know, you left that at the altar. And it's not that simple. You know, our faith my faith is extremely important to me. It's an anchor. But I also realize that God gives us resources, professional resources. Again, in the same way that doctors, cardiologists, you know, podiatrists, like all of these specialties. So we have to include our mental well-being in there as well. So we need conversations, we need workshops, we need sessions within churches where people are hearing from their trusted leaders that mental illness is real and cannot be prayed away.
Absolutely. And one thing that I've gotten, especially since I sought help, when I've gotten better at, because it came up in one of my sessions, is like, I used to have this habit of when people call me, like if I'm busy at the moment, or like I just don't want to talk, like I don't answer, you know, and like that's not okay, you know, because you never know what that call is about. Like you may think you never really know. Because you know, and that's why even now I may not feel like talking, but I pick up the phone, and you know, just hope it's nothing bad. But the thing is, on the off chance that it is something bad, I don't want it on my conscience that, you know, somebody I love called me, I didn't answer, I didn't call him back, and now here I find out a few days later something happened to him, and I could have been the one person that could have prevented that. So I've gotten better at that. Now, if I can't talk, I'm gonna text you and be like, okay, I'm gonna hit you right back. But you know, but there's some form of communication, because I had a bad habit of not doing that. But again, part of that because I was going through my own stuff. But now I understand the importance of, you might just be the last lifeline that person actually has.
It's so important, Hook. And I, you know, so even, you know, when you reached out regarding this platform, you know, I really try, you know, and it's a balance, because I can't be everywhere all the time. But if I'm available, you know, I welcome every opportunity to have this type of conversation, because again, it could make all the difference. You know, there could be one person watching, you know, who's feeling despondent, who's feeling hopeless. And it's because of the information shared here, the transparency shared here, that they decide, you know what, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to throw in the towel. I am going to reach out for help. And so I think we all have a responsibility. You know, I on social media, I share a lot in terms of my advocacy for mental health. And as a result of that, you know, I get inboxes all the time. I'll get somebody who texts me and just says, you know, I spoke with this person today, and this is what's going on. I'm concerned about them. We need that for each other. We need that for each other. And so if I can be a resource, if I can be a tool that helps somebody get the assistance and the support that they need, I'm absolutely all for it. I don't want to miss an opportunity that could be a life-saving opportunity. So I think we all have to take that level of responsibility. Become the person that somebody feels comfortable being vulnerable with.
Absolutely. And now, why do you guys think there's such negative images about mental illness? Like, why, especially in the Black community? Because, like, when I first graduated and became part of corporate America, like my Caucasian coworkers, I'd hear them say, "Well, yeah, I got to go see my therapist," or I'm going to therapy, or I'm going to see, and I'm like, they was talking so casually about it. But when Black people, even if I knew you were seeking therapy, no, don't tell nobody that, I'm doing that. So why do you think there's such a negative connotation attached to mental illness?
Do you think it's because of lack of knowledge, I guess?
I think it's in the Black community, we pride ourselves on our strength.
Having it together. Yeah.
No, we cover up real well. We do, hair slayed, nails, the finest, apparel, driving nice cars, living in nice houses. We cover up real well. But we walk around with we wear this, strength, like it's a badge. And we look at therapy or any sort of mental health treatment or services as a sign of weakness, that something is wrong with us. I see it every single day. Whereas our counterparts, they're like, I'm having struggles. I got an appointment with my therapist today at 4:00. They walk around in pride with that. That it's not anything that they're ashamed of. But we walk, and I feel like a lot of it is, again, just historically, a lot of things that we've, endured as a culture. So there are definitely factors that, have contributed to us, feeling the need to always be strong and representing that no matter where we are. But we've got to get to a place where we realize there is strength in getting help. That takes strength. That takes courage. And so it's not a sign of weakness. The way we perceive it as weakness, that's strength. There's so many people suffering in silence. And if you're one of the people who has the courage to reach out for help, you are to be commended. There is no shame in that. And so those are the conversations we have to start to have. But I believe, again, just in my work and my experience, that we perceive it as a sign of weakness.
Right. And while we're talking about like therapy and seeking help and treatment and things like that, how do we normalize that? Like, how do we normalize it's okay to seek help? It's okay to seek treatment options. It's okay to seek therapy. And one of the reasons, it was maybe a month or so ago, I was on this random Facebook post, and basically the comment was, the question was, hey, ladies, if your boyfriend's going through something, like, how do you deal with it? And they were just kind of like, I ain't dealing with it. I'm gonna just tell them to go seek help. You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of like just okay, it's fine if you're telling him to go seek help, but like, I mean, you're not gonna do anything. So how do we normalize that?
Yeah, I think there are a few different things. I think, again, because, faith and spirituality is so important in the Black community, I think we definitely have to, starting there is a good start. So again, having these conversations, having our leaders talk about and have normal conversations about the reality of mental health issues in the Black community. I think that would be significant. I also believe that, research shows that a lot of particularly African-American men don't seek treatment because, again, there are not a lot of culturally competent professionals. And so they go and end up with a white therapist, 24, with blonde hair and blue eyes, who can't connect with them. And so it's like, I'm not going to see. Now, don't get me wrong. I know some guys, some brothers who have found white therapists with blonde hair and blue eyes who they've really connected with. So I'm not saying that's always the rule. But what I'm saying is, many times when brothers reach out for professional help, and it doesn't happen a ton, but when it does, they're receiving services from a professional who's not culturally competent, and that makes a difference. So it is important. I love to see Black and brown women and men doing this work. And so we need more of that, so the brothers who are in undergrad, studying sociology or social work, I'm like, yes, because we need more Black and brown professionals. And then I think, again, we have to, we've got to, there's a lot of pressure for Black men to conform to traditional gender norms. And so we've got to, and a lot of that, again, is societal. But even in, as you were saying, Hook, even in our relationships, we have to, and I get it, because I'm one of those women that says, I don't want to have to, I need him to be together. I don't need, if I got to work on him, and I get it. But we've got to support our brothers. We really do have to create a space where it is okay for them to be vulnerable. It is okay for us to say to them, you know what, you really seem to be struggling, and it seems to be more than you can manage. I really think you would benefit from seeing somebody, and not create an uncomfortable situation where he's got to be worried about, am I going to lose my relationship if I go see a therapist? So I think there are a number of things that we can do. We need to, and be mindful of the words that we use. Again, just in casual conversation, you never know when you are missing a critical opportunity to save somebody's life. And so be mindful of the words that you use. So, we don't want words like crazy. We don't want words like he seemed a little off. We don't. And in the African-American community, we also see a lot of self-medicating. So we see a lot of substance use, and which is why jails and prisons are, our brothers are significantly, vastly overrepresented in prisons and jails, because they self-medicate, which in a lot of times leads to aggression and violence and criminal activity. So we've got to create spaces, again, start young, start with our young boys, and if there's not a father figure in the home, create a social network, of positive Black males. If your son, hurts himself and he's crying, that's okay. Let him know he's got feelings. Because otherwise he turns into a 30-year-old man who's all stoic, who does not know how to express himself.
Right.
So those are just a few of the ways we've got to stop making people feel like something's wrong with them. You have an issue. You have a condition that's not any different than if you're dealing with diabetes or high blood pressure.
Absolutely. And I think that
the support that you need.
Yeah, and I think there's I know for me personally, being a parent, there's a significant difference in the way that I raise my girls from the way that my mom raised me and my siblings, and just adults, period, back in that time frame, because we allowed them to be more expressive. We allowed them probably a little bit too much, but to, openly express themselves, nothing disrespectful, but to let them know that, hey, what you have to say matters. And at the dinner table, they dominate the conversation. Like, I may say 2 to 3 words, but we go around and say, hey, how was your day? And, whatever. Having a house full of women, that's kind of how it goes. So I'm just, sitting back, but I enjoy the conversation, but I need them to understand that their voice matters, because back in our day, it was do as I say, not as I do. And, if I try to explain myself, they like, why are you talking back? Well, I'm not talking back. I'm just trying to explain to you what happened. So as an adult now, when you see that authority figure and, they're telling you, hey, don't do X, Y, and Z, we really don't know how to take that. So we tend to obey, and we really don't really openly express ourselves. So I know there's a significant difference in the way that I'm raising my kids.
Absolutely. Self-expression is it's everything, regardless of what's going on with us. If we feel, if we are in an environment where we feel supported and we feel like we can be ourselves, we increase the likelihood that we are going to be ourselves, right? If we're in an environment where we feel like we have to conform, then that's where we suppress what's really going on with us, because it would be frowned upon, or it would be, perceived a different way, because we're not in an environment where we feel supported. So right. Self-expression is extremely important. And if we can't do that, in our families, how sad is that?
Absolutely. And like, what are some common symptoms of mental illness? Like, what are some telltale signs of when you can kind of tell when people are going through something?
Oh man, I think that really kind of goes along with, when you think about mental illness, like what face comes to mind, because it looks so different depending on who the person is. There are people who are going to work every single day, getting through their workday. And if you asked any of their coworkers, if, John Black over here, you thought he was dealing with depression or anxiety or hearing voices, or they'd say, no way, you've lost your mind. Like, there's no way. John is together. Like, John is. So it looks different for different people. My recommendation is always that you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to the people who matter to you. You have to pay attention to the people in your circle. Because if you don't, you won't recognize when something's off. But if I know you, I know you well, I'm part of your close network. I can say, you know what? The last 3 times that, I've invited you out, and I know that you're a really social person, the last 3 times I've asked you out, you've not really given me a reason why you couldn't go. You just didn't go. Like, that's not like you. Mm-hmm. Something as simple as that. And not being afraid to say, are you okay? Like, is anything going on? Like, how are you feeling? So we've got to know the people in our circle. We've got to know the people we care about so that we can recognize when something's off. We mask things again. We can go back to that. We mask really well.
Yeah.
Dress up all sorts of issues. So if nobody's paying attention, we get away with it.
Right.
They won't have a clue that anything's going on. And then we go back to our dark spaces and we suffer. We suffer. Drinking, okay, this is somebody who likes a beer every now and then, but I'm talking to him, I'm talking to you every evening, and it's like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm sitting here having a beer. Okay, well, before that was occasional, that might be once or twice a week. Now I've talked to you, several times this week, and every time I've talked to you, you're having a beer. We've got to pay attention. We've got to pay attention. If somebody is off course, they give us signs. They do. We only notice them, though, if we're paying attention.
Right.
Wow.
That's extremely important because it looks so different depending on who you talk to.
And I think that's the key thing, because the signs are definitely there. But like you said, if you're not paying close enough attention, they can be easily missed. Like oftentimes we get caught up in our own little world, our own, goings on, and everybody has stuff going on. But it's particularly important that we pay attention to people that matter. And if you think something's going on, it's okay to just call and check up on that person. Just call them and be like, hey, is everything okay? And these are things that I've begun doing now, not just, and I don't necessarily expect people to do them for me, but these are things I do, whether I know people are going through something or not. But if I see that something's off, if somebody posts like a I guess a post on Facebook, something that's kind of off, is very cryptic. I'm like, okay, this isn't like this person, so let me reach out just to make sure everything's okay. And 9 times out of 10, you'll find out maybe they just having a bad day. And we talked about the mass incarceration rate of our brothers. Like, the thing is, some of them aren't even career criminals. It could just be a bad day or even a bad moment.
Absolutely.
They were in the wrong place at the wrong time, or somebody messed with them at the wrong time,
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So why do you think that stigma matters? Because this word keeps coming up, like stigma. Like, people are so concerned with the stigma of mental illness and how it looks to other people. Why do you think that's so important?
Do you have thoughts, Ruben?
I'm sitting back and soaking it all in.
Stigma, it definitely matters. It's because, again, how we represent ourselves to, first of all, the people in our circle, the people who matter to us, and then to everybody else outside of that. So our jobs, our communities, our church, how we're represented matters. And so if I am, we're particularly in the Black community, we're so concerned about labels. Mm-hmm. We're concerned. I've gone out to see in my work with clients, met with this one woman, extremely a brilliant woman of color, studying for the bar exam, and was one of the most depressed people I had ever met. And her top concern was being labeled, so having a diagnosis, and then she was concerned, am I going to be able to practice? What is this going to mean for my professional career? So stigma matters because, again, it's the perception. It's how people see us. It's how people see us. So if we start to look differently at mental health and we consider it and treat it like any other physical condition, it lessens the pressure. So we feel a little bit more at ease with saying, I suffer from anxiety. I suffer from depression. But as long as there's this perception that something is wrong with you and you're going to be labeled, it's a hindrance. It keeps people from acknowledging that something is wrong, and then it keeps them from seeking the needed services and supports. So it definitely matters. We talk a lot about normalizing, but we really have to start to treat any sort of emotional or mental condition. We have to. There's so many people. It's not what it was 20 years ago. And not saying mental health didn't matter 20 years ago. It's certainly more spoken of now. But it's not going away. It's not going away. We see and hear the celebrities, who died by suicide or who are struggling and now, this person has Demi Lovato has a bipolar diagnosis. It's real. It's real. And there's so many different causes. Nothing that anyone has done wrong. No one certainly asked for it. Nobody asked for diabetes. Nobody asked to be diagnosed with a mood disorder.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the chemicals in our brain, and so we have to, I could just go on and on. It's the perception. It's how everybody sees us,
Yeah.
And so when people start to see us as, okay, she's, extremely smart. Okay. She says she has anxiety. She just a normal thing, just a normal part of life. And not make it such an isolated, you're in this box because, you're mentally ill. You have a mental illness. Doesn't define you. You are still, the person you were before you received the diagnosis.
Absolutely.
And as far as labels, we can do away with that. It's important for us to have to know what we're dealing with. Right? The same way we go to the doctor, they run all these tests and then it's like, oh, it came back and you're diabetic. Well, now that we know specifically what it is going on with you, we can better treat you. It's not any different for anxiety, depression, or any other mental health condition. We got to title it so that we can treat it appropriately.
Definitely. And I think that
comes from the perception.
Yeah, and I know for me, one thing that I had to gain was a sense of apathy, and not really care how people see you, and that was it. I know it's difficult for a lot of people. It was extremely difficult for me because you never wanted to be seen as someone weak, or you didn't want to be seen as someone who, quote unquote, has a problem with some crazy person. So I wish I would have learned that a long time ago. I hate it when. Because I had to wait until I was 40 plus years old to really develop that, but I'm glad because I'm a completely different person. I'm better. I feel differently. Like it's like I used to have a quick fuse, a quick temper. I don't even get upset. Like the smallest little thing would tick me off, but not anymore. Shut up, Ruben. Yeah, so I don't even get into fights with Kappas no more. But
right.
That's a story for another day. That was old Hook. This is the new Hook.
That was old Hook.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think that's important, Hook, because we talk a lot about living our best lives, right? Oh, we're living out, but we're really not. We're really not. We have to, we really do. And it doesn't always come with age, because I know people who are, up there and they're still struggling with that whole wanting to be accepted and caring about what other people think. But I do think a part of it, hopefully does come with age, is that you get to a place where the people who really matter to you, they embrace you. They wrap their arms around you. And the people who don't really matter, well, it's okay if they stand in judgment because you don't really matter anyway. But in order for me to really live my best life, I've got to treat my whole being. I've got to be true to my whole self. And that's being honest with me about what's going on with me. Because it's going to make me better. If I'm struggling with anxiety or I'm struggling with depression and I reach out and I get help and it's the appropriate help, it's going to make me better. And the people who matter will see that and appreciate that. Like, oh man, you are like a totally different person. Whatever you're doing is working. That's what the people who love us will say.
Yeah, and I laugh. I'm laughing because me and one of my cousins had that exact same conversation like a week ago. He was like, man, I don't even know what you're doing or whatever, but you like, you don't get mad anymore. You don't, you laugh and joke a lot more. I'm like, because to me, it's just not that serious. I think I've discovered a lot more things about myself that some of it was me, some of it was the stuff I went through, but I found balance. I found a common ground. And now I'm truly at peace. I can say that. And Kesia, this has been a phenomenal conversation. This has been great info. And before I let you go, I just want you to do one thing for me. So can you please speak on the importance of getting help early when we start feeling like there's a little bit of emotional distress? Like what's the benefit of seeking that help and that therapy early instead of letting it fester?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because a lot of times too, we think that we have to be we got to be, near the edge in order for us to seek out help. And that's not it's not the case at all. If you start to feel, an imbalance, if and typically we know ourselves, we know when something's going on with us. We know when we're not motivated. We know when we're easily triggered. We have to be honest first and foremost with ourselves. And so if you feel like, I've just not been feeling like myself for a while, I don't want to wait until this is full blown out of control. Let me reach out. And again, if you are not ready to reach out to a professional, if you have a trusted person in your circle, not someone who's going to stand in judgment, not someone who's going to make you feel bad about your feelings, but someone genuinely supportive of you, start there. No, they're not a professional, but that might be the support you need to help you get to the professional. And so that's just extremely important. It's also important, again, as I mentioned earlier, let's start young. Let's start with our children. Let's start with our little boys and girls. It is important to have kids express themselves. And yeah, we want to make sure they're not doing it, in a rude way or a disrespectful way, but it's okay for kids to express themselves. We want them to know that your feelings matter, so that they don't grow up feeling like, again, I'm a 30-year-old man or woman and I was never allowed to express myself. So I don't know how to do that now in my social relationships and my professional relationships. So we need to have those conversations with our kids. How are you feeling? Tell me what's going on with you. And parents, if your kids are struggling beyond what you are able to manage, it's not just corporal punishment. It's not just, taking the iPad and the phone and, until they straighten up. Okay, yeah, if it's, a behavioral issue and that's a one-time occurrence, that's understandable. But if you're seeing ongoing issues with your kid and you're like, I've exhausted, knowing how to help my kid, reach out for support. Doesn't make you a bad parent. There's strength in that. There's courage in that. So that's extremely important. Again, our faith communities, we've got to start having these conversations. So many people look up to their leaders. They lean on every word that comes out of their leaders' mouths. And so having their spiritual leaders say, mental illness is real. It can't just be prayed away. We have professional resources here we're making available to you. That's extremely important. So we've just got to, again, create an environment where people start to feel that they're not different, that there's not something wrong with them if they're struggling with some sort of mental health condition. It's really no different than any physical diagnosis that you might be given. So extremely important. Please, please, please reach out for help if you need it. Feeling hopeless, ending it all is not the only way out for you. There is help available. And as I said early on in the podcast, it's your business. No one has to know that you're seeking help unless you opt to share with them. So be good to yourselves. Take care of yourselves. We are whole beings. And if our minds are not strong, if our minds are not stable, the rest of us really just kind of falls apart. We can't take care of the physical and neglect the mental. So I hope that you guys have found this informational, that you found it useful. Pay attention to the people in your lives, the people who matter to you, because they could be reaching out for help and you don't want to miss the opportunity to save someone's life.
Great stuff. Awesome stuff. Ruben, what about you? You got anything you want to add?
Man, Kesia, I just want to say that was very informative, and I think it was very enlightening. I had some friends texting me. You saw me looking away from the screen, texting me that were looking at it, and they were basically blown away with it as well. So I definitely think it's something that's needed. As far as African-American men are concerned, of course, June is Men's Health Awareness Month, and I think this is quite the time to have this conversation. So definitely something that I needed as well. So it was very good.
Definitely. This was a phenomenal conversation. I'm sure you dropped several nuggets. So we're really appreciative of that. And fellas, it's okay, man. It's okay to tell your other brothers that you love them. I promise you it's fine. And that's another thing that I started doing as well. So these things that we were told not to do when we were younger, when you know better, you do better. So it's way past time we started doing those things. And for the audience, we thank you guys for joining and watching. Make sure you like the Alpha Psi Lambda chapter page on Facebook. Check us out on YouTube at Capital City Alphas, and our website. Keep me honest, Ruben. That's capitalcityalphas.sc.com.
Yeah, that's correct.
I got it. I got it right.
And Instagram also is Capital City Alphas as well.
Instagram as well. So yeah, we trying the social media thing out, man. It's working out well so far. So again, Ruben, I appreciate you for joining me, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Kesia, thank you so much for lending your expertise.
Absolutely.
And I really appreciate it. I really do.
No problem. Thank you guys so much. Nice to meet you, Ruben.
All right, nice meeting you as well.
All right, you guys take care.
All right.